So Neil's just asked me what it is about the car behind me that I love so much and why I'm mildly in love with it, because in the time that I've owned it, I must have bought and sold several other Porsches, some of which are significant, some of which aren't, which to most people would seem more important and more, let's say, keepable than that thing. Well, there's the history. This year marks 40 years of BMW M. In fact, I want to drive all of the significant cars from BMW M this year, so let's call this the first one of that series. I love the fact that BMW is being beaten by Ford in the European Touring Car Championship and just said, stuff it, and they stole all of Ford's good people, created this new department and built a legacy of amazing cars, so I like the history. The vehicle itself, well, in 1986 I was 11 years old, and when that car was launched I was just about starting to read car magazines, building the obsession, and I couldn't believe the spec on paper. There was this saloon car that looked like a taxi, and it had 286 horsepower. I remember thinking, well, that's a mistake in the magazine. It can't have 286 horsepower, because in those days, that felt like 1,000,000 horsepower. It felt like a bigger power figure than a Veyron has today. I love the engineering. I love the fact it was hand-built in Garching. I love the fact that there were only 187 that came in right-hand drive to the UK. I love the fact that it's so small and it's only 1,550 kilograms, and that even now it feels as fast as it did back in 1986. I love the fact that it's built beautifully, it looks great. I love the sharp nose grille, I love the Hofmeister kink, I love all of the design cues, because that era of BMW is the era that I was in love with. It was the one that captured my imagination. Yeah, as you can imagine, I can go on for hours about this car.
The truth is, my car isn't what you'd call a minter. It's a bit scruffy around the edges. These towing eye covers are missing at the front, and at some point during the shoot, it jettisoned a wheel centre. These are now more valuable than a Spanish bank, so I'm a bit fed up about that. The rear bumper rubber needs some sticking, and there's plenty of wear and tear inside. But I like it that way, it's honest. It wears its 26 years with real pride, and mechanically, it's absolutely spot on.
For me, it's a double win owning this car, because it does both things for me, both things that an ownership experience should offer. On the one hand, I love the concept of owning it because I'm completely into the car itself. So as a static object, just parked in my garage, I completely get off on the fact that I own it, and I don't really do that about many cars. But I also love driving this car, because even now, it's a proper experience. For starters, we've got 286 horsepower and 251 foot-pounds of torque from that magnificent 3.5 litre straight six out front. Car weighs 1,550 kilograms, and the back tyre is a 225 section. Claimed performance when this car was launched in 84-85 was, get this, 0 to 62 in 6.1 seconds, and this was the figure that blew people's minds. 0 to 100 miles an hour in 14.5 seconds. If you wanted to go faster, you had to have a 911 Carrera, and above 100 miles an hour, one of these would give those things a real fright. So suddenly we had a saloon car with all this comfort, electric seats, radio, cassette player, all this comfort and space, and a massive boot, and it could take a 911 on. I mean, what a brilliant recipe for a car, and no wonder that since the E28 M5, so many people have tried to copy it. But I don't think anyone's quite ever built a car like this since. And I include BMW in that. One of the things I absolutely love about this car is the old-fashioned feel of the controls. And I do think they can teach quite a bit to modern cars these days. The steering is quite slow, the gear change takes time, the clutch is quite long, the throttle's quite long. In other words, everything is forcing you to take time and be deliberate. Look at this gear shift. It's incredible how long it is. You have to just move your whole arm. Paint with the shoulder, like your teacher used to say. But it's only got 251 foot-pounds of torque, I say only, so you do have to rev it out, but that does mean you've got to use this engine. Oh, it's a thing of joy. Red line 6,500, goes to a bit further than that if you want to, and it rewards every last rev. It just sounds fantastic. Quite a heavy flywheel on it, so it doesn't sort of zip back down after you've left the throttle, but oh, it's just a lovely, lovely road car engine. interestingly, the car that followed this, the E34, which looks much more modern, has a 315 horsepower version of this motor. It's quite a bit heavier. I drove one recently and I was really disappointed at how slow it felt compared to this car. This car is definitely quicker than an E34, if you ask me. The later 40 horsepower versions, I'm not quite so sure. Those 3.8 litre cars had a bit more torque, but this feels very pokey and quicker than a 3.5 litre E34 M5. The driving position is absolutely all over the place. Your arms are out trying to get the top of the wheel, but your legs are too close and the pedals appear to be about a foot too close towards the squab of the seat. The seat itself adjusts in every possible direction. I love this as well. My headrest, watch this. See him going up? Electric headrest in a car from 1986. Fantastic stuff. It's a hand-built quality item. And I think I paid about £9.5 grand for it. I'm not very good because I can't find the actual receipt. Either way, it's the best money I've ever spent on a car because I love it. I know it's not a two-seater sports car, but the era in which I grew up learning to love cars, this was so significant. This defined everything that I loved about cars because it was unobtainable at the time. I couldn't believe that such a car would exist. A saloon car with 286 horsepower, that's absolute nonsense. Of course now it's the norm because the genre has developed and been adopted by people that like cars. But back then it just felt like I'd never even get to sit in one. And now I own one and I just love it. Why I haven't driven it for the last couple of years, I don't know. I should be shot for that, but now it's out and taxed and running. It's going to be used all this summer. I'm just going to enjoy the thing because it's just a fantastic motor car. Just lovely. Lovely.